Imagine stepping onto a planet where light has a heartbeat, cities float in silence, and the ground knows your name. Your team vanishes. You're alone, until a radiant being appears and asks, not who you are, but if your heart is claimed. What begins as a mission for answers becomes a fight for balance between worlds, as an ancient force awakens inside you. You're not just lost, you're chosen. But will you master the power, or let it destroy everything? Stay until the end. Some destinies don't ask permission. If you are new here, then please subscribe this channel and show thumbs up by liking the video. Let's move toward wonderful story. The first thing Kellen noticed was the light. It wasn't like anything he had ever seen before. It didn't shine like sunlight or flicker like the lights back on the ship. Instead, it shimmered gently, changing color every few seconds. Gold fading into silver, then turning deep blue, before returning to gold again. It looked alive, like the sky itself was breathing. Kellen had landed on dozens of strange planets during his years as a scout, but this world felt different from the moment he stepped out of the shuttle. Quiet. Still. Not dead, but waiting. Beneath his boots, the ground was smooth and crystal-like, yet it didn't make a sound when he walked. It should have echoed considering how heavy his gear was, but each step was silent, like the world itself was muffling every noise. The air carried a strange scent too, not unpleasant, just unusual. A mix of blooming flowers and something metallic, like the smell of a storm just before it breaks. Kellen glanced around, his eyes scanning the horizon. But even calling it a horizon felt wrong. What lay in front of him stretched endlessly, filled with floating towers, glowing shapes, and structures that hovered in midair without any sign of support. Everything looked carefully placed, like a painting or a dream. The colors in the sky danced across the surfaces of the floating buildings, casting moving shadows that bent and curled as if they had lives of their own. Only minutes earlier, he had been surrounded by his team. They had landed together near one of the larger floating cities after their ship picked up strange signals coming from this area. But the moment they stepped onto the surface, everything changed. A hum had filled the air, low and deep, and when Kellen turned to check on his crew, they were gone. No sounds, no cries, no signs of struggle. Just gone. Now he stood alone in this strange place, gripped by an eerie calm that settled over the world like a blanket. His heart pounded and he tightened his grip on his rifle. He wasn't sure it would help here, but it was the only familiar thing he had. He tried calling out on the communicator, but only static answered. The silence wasn't normal. It was too perfect, too complete. It made him feel as if the entire world was listening to him, watching him, studying him. Not in a threatening way, but with a kind of quiet interest, like he was a guest in someone's home. He took another careful step forward. As his foot touched the surface, he felt something odd, like the ground responded to him, pulsing faintly in rhythm with his own heartbeat. It wasn't frightening, just strange. It made him wonder if this place was alive in a way he couldn't understand. Everything around him felt deliberate. The floating towers, the glowing walkways, even the light itself. It all seemed designed by something intelligent, something that wanted him there. Kellen had always believed in logic, in cause and effect, in what he could measure. But here, on this world, those rules didn't seem to apply. Still, his instincts told him one thing clearly. He wasn't alone. There was something out there. Something watching. He didn't know if it was a creature, a person, or a force, but he could feel its presence like a soft weight pressing gently on his mind. He felt no fear, only a growing curiosity mixed with awe. As he moved deeper into the city, the light around him seemed to follow, like it was guiding him somewhere. And then he heard it, not with his ears, but inside his thoughts. A whisper, soft and melodic like the wind passing through the leaves of a tree he couldn't see. The voice said, "You are not lost. You were chosen." Kellen froze. He looked around, but there was no one there. Just the light in the city, silent and beautiful. The voice didn't return, but its presence remained, resting just beyond his thoughts like a shadow at the edge of a candle's glow. He considered, turning back. But back to what? The shuttle was still where they had landed, untouched and lifeless, with no sign of the others. The world had taken them, or maybe something within the world had. And yet, Kellen couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't an accident, that he was meant to be here, that everything from the signal that brought them to the shimmering city that now surrounded him had been arranged for a purpose. He walked on, driven by a mix of questions he didn't yet know how to ask. Who, or what, had created this place? Why had it taken his team but left him behind? And why did he feel so strongly that something was waiting for him just ahead? As he moved between two tall spires of glowing crystal, the silence suddenly deepened, pressing into his ears. The ground beneath him pulsed again, stronger this time, and for a brief moment the light around him turned a soft violet, like twilight on an unfamiliar world. Then from between the spires, a shape began to form. A figure, tall and graceful, stepped forward, glowing faintly as though lit from within. Kellen's breath caught in his throat. The voice returned, clearer this time, not just in his mind but around him. It spoke only one word: welcome. Kellen stood frozen as the glowing figure stepped into full view. Her form was almost human, but not quite. Her skin shimmered like light reflecting off water, and her movements were slow, smooth, and silent. She wore no armor, no weapon, and yet her presence felt stronger than anything Kellen had faced in battle. Her eyes, large and shifting in color, studied him with deep curiosity. There was no fear in them, only interest, like she had been waiting for him for a very long time. Kellen didn't raise his weapon. Somehow, he knew it wouldn't matter. This being was beyond anything he could fight or control. The figure tilted, her head slightly, and spoke, her voice soft and layered like many tones speaking at once. "You are alone," she said, not as a question, but as a fact. Kellen hesitated, unsure if he should respond. But something about her made it hard to lie. "Yes," he answered. "My team. They disappeared. I don't know where they went." The figure took a small step closer. "They were moved," she said, her words hanging in the air like gentle ripples in water. "Not harmed, simply separated. You were kept here for a reason." Kellen frowned. "What reason? Why me?" She didn't answer right away. Instead, she turned and gestured for him to follow. Her hand moved with the grace of someone used to being obeyed, yet it held no force, no command, only invitation. Kellen followed. As they walked through the strange glowing city, the ground pulsed beneath their feet, soft and steady like a heartbeat. The air felt warmer near her, as if her presence carried energy. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice quieter now. She glanced over her shoulder. "I am called Linnea," she said, "keeper of echoes. My duty is to remember what was and guide what may come." Kellen didn't fully understand what that meant, but he sensed that pressing her for details too quickly might close her off. So he walked beside her, watching as the city responded to her presence. The lights above brightened when she passed, and walls of crystal reflected images he couldn't explain. Moments of time, maybe, or memories that didn't belong to him. They stopped before a large orb floating a few feet above the ground. It shimmered softly, its surface rippling like water touched by wind. "This is our archive," Linnea said. "It holds the voices and visions of my people. What remains of them?" Kellen stepped closer, mesmerized. Inside the orb, shapes and images moved. Landscapes, stars, even what looked like cities on fire, crumbling into nothing. He felt a sudden pull in his chest, like the orb was drawing something out of him. "What is this?" he asked, backing away slightly. "It remembers," Linnea answered, her tone still calm. "And it recognizes." She turned to face him fully. "There is something inside you, Kellen, a piece of something older than this place. You awakened it the moment you stepped into our world." Kellen blinked. I don't understand, I'm just a scout. A soldier. I follow orders. I don't carry ancient anything. Linnea smiled, but it was a quiet, almost sad smile. Sometimes, the vessel is unaware of the weight it carries, she said. The orb flickered suddenly, its surface flashing with a symbol neither of them expected. Linnea's face changed. Calm was replaced by concern. The ground beneath them shifted slightly, and the light in the sky dimmed just a little. This shouldn't be happening, she said, stepping toward the orb and placing both hands on its surface. What is it? Kellen asked, suddenly alert. A warning, she whispered. Or a memory pushing forward. Something has been disturbed. The calm of the city broke for the first time. In the distance, a low hum began to rise like the sound of wind growing stronger before a storm. Linnea turned to him, her eyes more serious now. We have to leave, this place is no longer safe. Kellen followed without question. The peaceful rhythm of the world had shifted. Now everything felt slightly off, like a dream starting to turn into a nightmare. As they moved quickly through the glowing corridors and past floating towers, Kellen couldn't stop thinking about what she said. That something inside him had caused this, that he was somehow tied to this world. Why me? He asked again, breathless from the pace. Why was I the one left behind? Linnea stopped and looked at him, her expression unreadable. Because you are unbound, she said softly. And that changes everything. Unbound? He repeated. You mean single? She nodded. Among my kind, to be unbound means to be open to new connection, to growth, to transformation. It is rare. It is powerful. Kellen wasn't sure how to respond. He'd never thought of his relationship status as anything important, let alone powerful. But in this place, everything was different. So what now? He asked. Where are we going? Linnea's voice dropped to a whisper. To the sanctuary, she said. If we can reach it, we may still have a chance. Behind them, the city groaned, stone and light shifting, groaning like it was alive and in pain. The air grew colder, and that warm, comforting pulse from before faded away. Something old had awakened, and it was watching. Kellen didn't know what waited ahead, but he knew the calm was over. Whatever answers waited in the sanctuary, he had to reach them. And fast. The ground shook beneath Kellen's boots as he followed Linnea through the changing city. The gentle pulse that had once guided his steps was gone, replaced by an uneven tremor that made it hard to walk. The lights above flickered. Buildings that once shimmered with calm colors now glowed red and orange, like fire waiting to burst through the cracks. It felt like the world itself was warning them. Linnea moved quickly and with purpose, but Kellen could see the tension in her face. Whatever calm had once existed in her eyes was replaced by concern, and perhaps even fear. They turned a corner, entering a wide path between two massive crystal walls. The hum in the air was louder now, deeper, as if the planet had begun to breathe, in anger. Kellen struggled to keep up. What's happening? He asked, his voice raised over the noise. Something has stirred, Linnea answered without slowing. Something old. Something that should have stayed asleep. Her words made his chest tighten. This was no longer just a strange mission or a lost city. This was something far more serious. Suddenly the air grew colder. A gust of wind swept through the corridor, even though no wind had existed before. The hum turned into a low rumble. They both stopped as a shadow passed overhead, large and heavy. Kellen looked up just in time to see part of one of the floating towers collapse, crashing into the ground behind them with a thunderous roar. The shockwave nearly knocked him over. Cracks spread along the ground like spiderwebs, glowing faintly red. We need to run, Linnea said sharply. Now! They dashed forward, dodging falling debris and leaping over broken pieces of the crystal road. The city was falling apart around them. Every step felt like it might be their last. Kellen glanced behind them, and that's when he saw it. A massive figure stepped from the smoke, tall and broad, its body covered in shifting black armor that looked like stone and liquid at once. Its eyes glowed white and it moved with a slow, terrifying purpose. "What is that?" Kellen shouted, pulling his rifle into his hands. "A guardian," Linnea replied breathlessly. "Or what remains of one." The creature let out a sound that didn't seem possible, half roar, half echo, like metal tearing through the sky. Kellen raised his weapon and fired a short burst. The bullet sparked off the creature's surface and scattered uselessly. The guardian didn't slow. It only grew brighter, angrier. "It won't stop," Linnea warned. "We must get to the sanctuary. Only there can it be held back." They sprinted down another path, the guardian close behind. It didn't run, but each of its steps made the ground quake. As they turned another corner, Kellen slipped, hitting the ground hard. Pain shot through his leg. Linnea reached down and pulled him up with strength that surprised him. "You must keep moving," she said, almost pleading. "You were meant to reach the sanctuary." The path finally opened into a wide plaza. At the center stood a tall monolith, smooth and red, glowing steadily like a heartbeat that had not yet been disturbed. Unlike the city around it, this place remained untouched. It was silent and still. "There," Linnea said, pointing. "That is where you must go." Kellen nodded, limping forward. But before they could reach the monolith, the guardian leapt into the plaza with a crash. Its landing sent out a wave of force, knocking Kellen to the ground again. Linnea stepped in front of him, raising her arms. Light poured from her hands, striking the guardian and pushing it back. For a moment it stumbled. The glow in her skin brightened until it lit up the entire plaza. "Go," she said without looking back. "I'll hold it." Kellen struggled to his feet. "I can't just leave you." She turned her head and her voice softened. "You must. You are the key. If you stay, we both fall." Kellen looked at her, torn. But something inside him, maybe the part awakened by this world, told him she was right. He turned and ran toward the monolith. As he reached it, its light surrounded him, pulling him inside. He turned for one last glance and saw Linnea standing firm, her entire body glowing as the guardian advanced again. Then everything disappeared. Inside the monolith, Kellen found himself floating in darkness. There was no sound, no ground, no sky, just a vast space filled with soft red light. He wasn't falling. He wasn't flying. He simply was. His heart pounded in his chest, but not from fear. Something was changing inside him. He felt warmth spreading through his arms, his legs, his chest. The whisper he had heard earlier returned, clearer this time. "You have entered the memory. What comes next is truth." And then the darkness around him began to shift. Shapes formed, images of worlds, stars, and beings of light and shadow. He saw destruction, but also creation. He saw the guardian as it once was, proud, powerful, noble, and he saw the force that had twisted it, something dark and ancient, something that recognized him. Kellen understood now. He wasn't just a visitor. He had been drawn here for a reason, and that reason was waking up. Kellen drifted in a space that didn't seem real. There was no sky above or ground below, just a wide, endless stretch of glowing light and shadow, moving slowly like a tide. He felt weightless yet grounded. Sounds came and went, not through his ears, but inside his mind. Whispers, memories, pieces of thoughts that didn't belong to him. He tried to move, and the world shifted with him. Colors swirled around his steps like smoke in water. Everything was calm, quiet, but not empty. Something was here, watching, waiting. A path of faint light appeared ahead of him. It glowed softly, rising in the air like a trail meant only for him. Kellen didn't hesitate. He stepped forward, the light warming under his feet. With each step, more images danced at the edges of his vision, memories, perhaps, or possibilities. He saw his team again, laughing, preparing for the mission, unaware of what they would face. He saw Linnea standing strong in the plaza, holding off the Guardian alone. And then he saw himself, except it wasn't quite him. The figure stood tall and still, a perfect reflection. Same face, same eyes, same clothes, right down to the dust on his boots. But this version of him had something different. Something in the eyes. They glowed faintly with the same red light from the monolith. The reflection spoke, but not aloud. Its voice echoed in Kellen's mind, calm and even. You've come far, but this is where you decide what comes next. Kellen stared at the reflection. Who are you? He asked. I'm you, the figure replied, or who you can become. The words sounded simple, but the meaning was heavy. Kellen stepped closer. What's happening to me? What is this place? The reflection raised its hand and the glowing world around them shifted again. The sky darkened, the ground cracked, and the red light flickered. In the distance, the corrupted version of the city reappeared. Towers broken, shadows crawling, the Guardian roaring in rage. This, the reflection said, is what your presence has awakened. The fragments of something ancient live in you, now. They were drawn to your mind, your spirit, because you are unbound, open, untouched by the old patterns. But now they need direction. Without control, they will spread. They will destroy. Kellen shook his head slowly, trying to take it all in. But I didn't ask for this, he said. I'm just a scout. I never wanted to. The reflection stepped forward. And yet you are here. And you are not the same person who stepped off that shuttle. Kellen lowered his gaze. Deep inside, he knew the reflection was right. He had felt something changing from the moment he arrived. The warmth in the ground, the pull of the city, the way his heartbeat had synced with the rhythm of the world, and Linnea's words echoed again in his memory. You are unbound. And that changes everything. What happens if I walk away? Kellen asked, lifting his eyes again. The reflection didn't answer at first. It turned, showing him the dying city once more. If you turn away now, the fragments will remain in you uncontrolled. They will twist. They will spread. Not just here, but wherever you go. The decay will follow. You won't just risk one world. You'll risk many. The weight of the choice settled on Kellen's shoulders. He had never asked to carry this power, whatever it was. But it was his now, whether he liked it or not. He looked at the reflection. Then how do I stop it? The reflection stepped aside and the glowing path returned, leading toward a quiet light in the distance. You don't stop it. You become it. You guide it. Learn it. Shape it. Only then can balance return. Kellen stepped toward the path, breathing deeply. The fear was still there, but something else had taken root, a sense of purpose. He didn't know what he would become. He didn't know what the future held, but he knew that running away was no longer an option. As he followed the light, the world around him brightened again, the shadows pulling back. A familiar voice spoke softly in his mind. Kellen, can you hear me? His heart jumped. It was Linnea. I'm here, he said aloud, even though he wasn't sure she could hear his voice. Where are you? Her presence grew stronger, more clear. In the sanctuary, she said. I survived. But the fragments are moving. We must finish what we started. Kellen walked faster. The light around him turned into a doorway, shimmering with warmth. He stepped through without hesitation, and the world spun once again. He landed in the sanctuary, just beyond the edge of the red monolith. Linnea was there, her body dimmed but her eyes bright. She smiled weakly as he approached. You came back. Kellen nodded. I'm ready. Together, they stepped to the center of the sanctuary. The fragments, now visible like glowing threads, in the air surrounded them. Kellen reached out, not with fear but with focus. The threads wrapped around his hands and his chest. He felt pain at first, then clarity. The fragments weren't enemies. They were pieces of a story waiting to be finished. Linnea placed her hand over his. Guide them, she whispered, and he did. The sanctuary pulsed once, twice, then exploded, with light. When the glow faded, the world outside had changed. The sky was calm. The city, though scarred, had stopped falling apart. The Guardian was gone. Kellen stood quietly, breathing slowly. He wasn't just a scout anymore. He was something more.